Hello, welcome to the StarCityGames.com Players Championship. I am here, Nick Miller, alongside Gerry Thompson, SCG Tour regular, longtime legend, first-time Players Championship, though.
Yeah, that's weird.
Now, you've done basically everything on the SCG Tour. Invitationals, Opens, back-to-backs, 2 times, bunch of open wins, but this is your first Players Championship. Are you excited?
Yeah, I don't think I ever won a draft open either, but...
Yeah. You're too busy winning the Opens.
Yeah, probably true.
It's not a bad thing. So you metagame for this tournament. You wrote a pretty sweet article about how you kind of planned. You worked with Tom, I believe, a little bit.
Not really. I tried not to work with Tom.
Because
I knew I wasn't going to do a lot of preparation for this tournament, and he kept saying things, like, oh, yeah, I think I might play Lands and Legacy. I'm like, dude, stop. I don't want to know what you're playing. Like, I don't want to, have an unfair advantage because, I didn't tell anyone what I was playing.
Okay. So Tom sort of wanted to work with you, bounce things off you, but you said, no, sir. This is all me.
Yeah, just because I knew that he would put in more prep than me. So.
All right. Well, you can put in some prep. You definitely know the formats. You play them all pretty well. Mm-hmm. Talking about Standard today, this is a deck kind of harkening back to the Season 1 Invitational where you top-8'd. You're playing white-blue humans.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I was playing red-black aggro. I played a little bit of Mardu vehicles. I played Flash in a couple tournaments. I've been kind of all over the place. I really didn't try Delirium, but I knew that Marvel was going to be very good. And it's going to be a big part of this field. If it's half the metagame, I would not be surprised. So, Delirium's kind of out the window. You can't play that deck. And then once that's gone, it's okay, well, now kind of opens up the format a bit where it's you can play a deck that hates on Marvel, but might be a little weak to, Liliana and Ishkana and stuff like that. Just built a white weenie deck effectively, trying to go under the Flash decks, Jim's Esper aggro deck, stuff like that, and trying to get under the Marvel decks, too.
All right, well, let's take a look at the deck here. We're going to see a bunch of creatures. We've seen these, all these guys before. Gossip Mongerer, Expedition Envoy, Thraben Inspector. You got all the 1-drops here. You're humans through and through.
Gossip Monger's great. It's super huge, especially if you have Thalia's Lieutenant or Always Watching. I'm not sure if it's a combo with Smuggler's Copter or not. I haven't really figured that out because it's if you play Gossip Monger into Copter, obviously you want to go 1-drop into Copter, then you can't transform the Gossip Monger, but later you can use it to crew the Copter so you don't have to suicide it, which is kind of cool. And Expedition Envoy is a little bit weaker than I'd prefer, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, you got to have your 1-drops. These are them. Of course, I guess we will see, combo and non-combo with Smuggler's Copter, but that card's good enough anyway. I don't think you mind tapping it down. We'll keep going through here. We're going to see the real payoff cards. Thalia Lieutenant. This is the card that really wants you to be human-centric.
Yeah, so Smuggler's Copter, obviously not a human. Spellqueller, not a human. The deck is not as human-dense as it was before because of Origins rotating out and stuff. So you're not getting those super huge Lieutenant turns, but just even playing a 1-drop into Lieutenant I think is going to be fine because then on subsequent turns the Lieutenant's going to grow itself. But yeah, Reflector Mage is definitely one of the reasons for the splash. One of the best cards in any sort of creature matchup. I think it's the one thing that kind of lets you play aggro and defense, which a lot of these decks don't really have the capability of doing. And then Copter, I think, is probably the big upgrade from my Invitational deck, despite not being a human, just because it keeps the gas flowing,
Right. The card did not exist at that time.
Right.
Now you have a flying threat that kind of gives your deck a little bit of evasion, no longer needed relying on things like Griff's Boon or whatever to get your evasion. Keep moving on here. We'll see the other blue splash, of course, Spellqueller. With Marvel being the deck that it is, this is the card you want to be playing.
Yeah, well, to some degree. I mean, you definitely want to be able to stop Marvel. I think Ishkana is the bigger threat, which is why the Thalias and Revolutionary rebuffs are in there. But, I don't know, I would like to play 4 Queller just because it's a very solid card. Even 2-3 Flash Flyer is fine, especially with Always Watching. But I had a lot of 3-drops, and I really wanted to play Thalia, so you have to shave on those a little bit, and then it means I can cut a blue source from my mana base, so a lot of little things at play. But most of the time, I think the plan with this deck is just going to get under the Marvel decks, and even if they Emrakul you, if they go Marvel into Emrakul, they might just die on your extra turn.
Right, it just doesn't matter because you have so many bodies that can't deal with them all. And then, of course, Thalia, great. If Ishkana is the card you're worried about, this is allowing you to kind of punch in the rest of the damage.
Yep, exactly.
Rebuff, great against Ishkana as well. A bunch of other cards you're kind of worried about. And then we'll move on to the rest here. I think we're just a couple removal spells, Declaration of Stone, and then Always Watching.
Yeah, Stone is solid. It's basically there for Spider, again, just mainly clearing all the tokens. It's not very good in the mirror matches. It's not very good against Flash. but it gets the job done. It is like the cheapest, like unconditional removal spell that you can play. And then always watching, again, only 3 copies because of the same issue with Spell Queller, where it's like we already have a lot of 3-mana cards.
Sure. Mana base here, pretty simple. You got your white-blue duels between Prairie Stream. You're going to have some fun old Port Town there. Plains, islands, super simple.
Yep.
Just trying to curve out, just trying to beat down.
Yeah, I miss Knight of the White Orchid, but I think this deck will be okay.
All right, so let's move on to the sideboard here. It's pretty clear what you're trying to fight. You got a bunch of counter spells here between Spell Shrivel and Ceremonious Rejection.
Yeah, so there's not a counter spell, really, that stops Ishkana and Aetherworks Marvel. If there were, then I wouldn't have to have, like, Rebuff and Spell Queller in my main deck. You know, it is super weird. So Spell Shrivel is kind of that thing. Rejection is just because I feel like while Marvel might not be their most important card, even if you snag like a Puzzle Knot or something, that might cut their clock by a turn. And with having a bunch of 3-mana cards in my deck, like that's going to allow me to double spell in the mid game, and I think that's really important, even if it's not countering the spell that I actually want.
Right.
So,
and I think Puzzle Knot's kind of scarier for the aggro decks than a lot of people want to believe on the surface. That's a lot of life.
It's like, oh man, 3 life, that's like half an attack step or whatever. That's actually a big deal, and also the energy is a big deal too. Like it's very easy for them to get to 6 a lot of the time, but to like do it again, that's a lot tougher.
Right. And we've got the Lantern Scout here, allows you to race. And then of course the next page here, Gideon, Fragmentize, and an extra land, I guess, if you're trying to cast Gideon.
For Gideon, but also just for the extra counter spells too. I would like to have an additional blue source.
Okay. We kind of zoomed past the Lantern Scout there. What exactly are you bringing that up again? Is that just mainly like Mardu?
I think Lantern Scout's probably bad. I wanted something for creature matchups. The weird thing is, though, in a lot of the creature matchups, they're trying to transform into more of a control deck. So it's like the Gideons, I only had 2 Gideons for a while, but I think I want the 3rd Gideon actually in the creature mirrors once they slow down, specifically Mardu Vehicles, if that deck is actually here. I don't think it's going to be huge. I think Jim's Esper deck is going to be a little bit more popular, and Jim's Esper deck, like depending on their configuration, might be one that actually just comes down to a racing situation, because neither of us have like a bunch of removal or a lot of good ways to interact. They're trying to get me with like Scrap Heap Scrounger and stuff, so having that extra life buffer might help, but if I play the entire tournament and never want to side in Lantern Scout, I would not be surprised. But it's mostly just a hedge.
All right, so talk about a little bit just the format in general, how you prepared. You mentioned Jim's Esper deck. That looked very good, at the Invitational. What kind of pulled you toward this deck over that deck? They're sort of similar, but,
yeah, they are.
They
definitely have like the same game plan where it's like, okay, I'm going to be a little lower to the ground. I'm going to have access to some counter spells, and I'm basically going to stop like the Marvel decks and Delirium from doing their important things, right? But my deck is like, okay, I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to be as resilient because there's not really a need. Like, if everyone is playing white aggro decks and Aetherworks Marvel, then, like, you're not grinding against anyone. You don't really need the Scrap Heap Scroungers. Like, it is basically just 2-mana 3/2 they can't block, which is not very impressive. So it's like, all right, can we do anything better than this, right? So Thalia's Lieutenant is where that kind of comes in, and it's like, well, I would like to play Toolcraft Exemplar, but, if we're cutting Scrounger and then we have Lieutenant, then we can't really play it. So it's just like, okay, well, if I play humans, then I can play 12 1-drops and actually get under them, and I think that's going to be a big edge.
Awesome. So what would you say the metagame would look like going in?
I think it's roughly going to be 8 and 8, like white aggressive decks of varying degrees, and 8 Marvel decks.
All right. Well, you have it figured out. You have your aggressive.
Am I right?
Can't tell you. You'll find out tomorrow.
All right.
Of course, everyone else will as well. So, Gerry, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Good luck in your first Players' Championship.